Welcome back to the weekly Education Pulse, your go-to source for global stories, trends, and behind-the-scenes insights from the world of international education. I'm Tony.
And I'm Sammy. Every week we dig into news that matters, spark a bit of conversation, and hopefully leave you a little more informed and entertained than when you arrived.
Coming up, a world tour of new school openings from Abu Dhabi to Bhopal and Chongqing. Finance meets EdTech with the crypto and mobile dollar accounts.
And finally, we'll shine a light on a fascinating development, public schools going international. Not in name, but in curriculum. So let's get into it. And we start this week with some serious movement in the Gulf. First up, Aldar Education is teaming up with King's College UK to launch King College Al Fahd in Abu Dhabi, a fully through British curriculum co-ed with boarding. They're aiming squarely at the premium market and expanding their footprint beyond traditional expat strongholds.
Not far behind is the expansion in India. Shrewsbury School, one of the oldest schools in the UK, is opening a co-ed international boarding campus in Bhopal. What's notable here is their ambition: Cambridge curriculum, international faculty, and a full residential model. It's a big vote of confidence in India's future as a boarding destination.
And meanwhile, Nobel Algarve British International School in Portugal is levelling up its post-16 offering. Sports science, psychology, practical life coaching, and career-focused modules. It's a great example of a school not just preparing kids for university, but for life.
And speaking of investment in the future, Harrow Guangzhou is making waves with its topping out ceremony and confirmed September 2026 opening. AISL is pulling out all the stops on this one. State-of-the-art facilities, global ambition.
And then not far from China, we're moving over to South Korea, where a new international school is coming up to Songdo, one of Asia's smartest cities. Driven by a rising demand from expats and Korean returnees, this is one to watch. Education continues to anchor the development strategy in these economic zones.
Now over to Chongqing, China, and a new international school backed by Singaporean investors, which is set to open in the next couple of years. This is part of a broader trend of ASEAN investment in education hubs within China, big cities, again, big ambitions.
And then swinging back over to Europe, in Athens, Smart Vision School has joined the International School Partnership Network. ISP continues to build its European presence, and this acquisition brings another local school into a global system.
Seems to be a weekly story here. International School Partnership adding schools to their network. If we now move back to the UK, Duke's Education is launching a new sixth form college in Holborn. It's a pure A-level and university prep model, targeting domestic and international families, aiming at Oxbridge and other top-tier unis.
And finally, we'll just talk a little bit about Sonny Varkey, because a new Forbes profile revealed his vision for turning GEMS education into what he calls world-class jewels. He's investing in teacher development, well-being, tech platforms, and global benchmarking. So whether or not you love the corporate school model, GEMS is one of the few players thinking globally and vertically.
Well, that's a wrap on the news roundup, Sammy. What's next?
Yeah, it's time for some finance meets education innovation. First up in Uganda, where Stanbic Bank has launched a mobile US dollar account for school fees. So that means families, especially those with diaspora connections, can now save and pay in dollars straight from their phones. That's a major access play.
This is especially helpful in international schools in Africa that quite often quote tuition in USD. And, this is the kind of fintech alignment that could really reduce some of that friction that families face. Imagine if more banks do this across emerging markets.
Yeah, imagine if they did. But another example we got for you this week is Lomond School in Scotland, which is going crypto. Yep, they're now accepting Bitcoin for tuition fees via OpenNode. It's converted pounds instantly to Bitcoin, and it opens a door. So whether it's future-facing or gimmicky is yet to be seen, but it certainly made headlines and challenges the narrative of traditional financing models that schools currently follow with fiat currencies. So this school was brave enough to make this first step into the blockchain ecosystem. It's now a question of whether we'll see any other operators take this step.
And what I really like about this is just that willingness to explore different ways of value exchange. Now, even if crypto isn't the future of fees, schools at least willing to embrace the language of digital finance. All right, now time for our spotlight segment. This week, public schools going global. I wrote a piece about this recently, and this trend is accelerating.
Yeah, and I think people would be surprised to hear this. It's not just private or international schools offering Cambridge, IB, or Pearson EdXL offerings. We're now seeing government-funded public schools adopting them, and in countries you might not even expect.
We've got Brazil, Egypt, Kazakhstan, just to name a few examples. In Brazil, it's about opening doors to higher education abroad. Kazakhstan, it's a nationwide push to modernize learning outcomes.
Yeah, Egypt's case is interesting as well. They're using international curricula within public experimental schools to elevate standards. But these schools still sit in elite urban pockets. And it brings up the question, who gets access?
Yeah, and that's a big risk. If these international tracks are only accessible to a small number of students within the public system, then you risk creating a two-tier system within, the system that's meant to be providing access to all.
Yeah, it's a real balancing act between prestige and equity. And international curricula can add immense value, but implementation does matter. Otherwise, you just end up replicating the exclusivity of private education inside a public school setting.
And let's not forget the governance part here. If your national curriculum starts taking a back seat, what does that mean for cultural literacy, language retention, and national identity?
Yeah, big questions and big changes. This isn't just an academic issue, it's political, economic, and strategic. So we'll certainly be keeping an eye on this as it evolves.
Well, that brings us to the end of this week's episode of the Weekly Education Pulse.
Yeah, we went global once again, from Uganda's fintech education shift to Harrow's Guangzhou campus and the rise of international curriculum public systems.
If you enjoyed the show, subscribe, leave us a comment, or share it with a colleague who you think might be as obsessed as we are with education trends.
We'll see you next week. Until then, keep your finger on the pulse.